Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a super fascinating, data-driven journey through the wild world of global economics, cost of living, and high-end luxury. And the best part? Every single insight we're digging into today comes straight from the wealth-building platform Alex. They've built this massive community completely dedicated to decoding how money actually works around the world. We're going to follow the data from these grand, overarching theories of wealth creation, literally right down to the actual cost of getting a haircut in a dozen different countries. So grab a seat and let's get into it.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap. First, we'll hit the future billionaire mindset. Then look at the global cost of grooming. Check out the prime property $1 million mark. And finally, wrap up with the modern middle class. Let's go.
Section 1. The Future Billionaire Mindset. Decoding the ALUX Philosophy.
Before we really unpack the data on where wealth is headed, we've got to understand the core philosophy of our source material. How do they actually view the economic landscape? Well, their central mission statement from their channel trailer lays it out perfectly. Welcome to Alex, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Now look, whether or not you actually want to be a billionaire, what's absolutely crucial here is their foundational perspective. This is a community literally laser-focused on pushing human potential, understanding capital, and mapping out the pathways to extreme wealth accumulation. They aren't just watching what money is doing today. No, they want to equip us with things like the most profitable side hustles for 2026 and beyond, so you can actually build that wealth.
Notice how crazy specific their strategic focus is. Alex tracks these key entrepreneurial pillars designed to guide folks to that first 100 grand and way beyond. And sitting right at the very top of that list, an absolute obsession with the most profitable side hustles expected for 2026. Think about that for a sec. They're not looking at what crushed it in 2020, or honestly, even what's working right this minute. They're out there analyzing massive economic future forces, 10-year wealth trends, and the exact industries minting millionaires right now, all to project which side hustles are going to dominate the market down the line. This super forward-looking mindset, that's the exact lens they use to analyze all global wealth data.
Moving on to Section 2, the global cost of grooming, a look at the microeconomic.
So, to really wrap our heads around global wealth, we actually need to zoom way in to a highly relatable microeconomic data point. Why a haircut? Well, getting a bad haircut is pretty much a universal human experience, right? But the price tag attached to that haircut reveals some genuinely shocking economic disparities across the 38 global capitals tracked in our source data. I mean, a haircut is fundamentally the exact same labor-intensive service no matter where you go, yet the price difference perfectly illustrates what the actual value of a dollar is, completely depending on where you happen to be standing.
The scale of contrast here is just massive. In Norway, you're shelling out nearly $65, $64.50 to be exact. Here in the US, it sits at a pretty hefty $44. But jump over to Zambia, and that exact same haircut drops to just $1.65. No way, right? You could literally get your haircut almost 40 times in Zambia for the price of one single trip to the barber in Norway. That's wild. It's not just some fun trivia fact, though. It's a super stark, real-world visualization of purchasing power parity and global wage disparities.
Let's look at the middle of the pack to see how this builds. In Japan, you're looking at $56. England comes in at around $35 and change. But cross into emerging markets, and Mexico drops to $9.66, while India is just over $5. I want you to mentally place your own city on this index. Where do you land? Because honestly, the price of your local haircut is a surprisingly accurate indicator of the massive economic machinery operating all around you every single day.
But, okay, let's shift gears here. We've seen how everyday micro expenses fluctuate, but what happens when we jump to the absolute top of the financial food chain? So what does $1 million actually buy the global elite?
That brings us to Section 3, the prime property $1 million mark, zooming out to the macroeconomy.
According to the Knight Frank Wealth Report, which Alex tracks to monitor luxury real estate, 16. That's the number. Just let that sink in for a second. $1 million buys a mere 16 square meters of prime property in Monaco. To put that into perspective, a standard parking space in the US is about 15 square meters. So for a cool $1 million, you are essentially buying a walk-in closet in Monaco. It completely redefines what we consider to be wealthy.
This brilliantly illustrates how $1 million stretches to vastly different lengths depending on your zip code. We just saw Monaco gives you a tiny 16 square meters. New York gets you 34.
In Paris, you get 40. But head over to Dubai, your $1 million buys you 91 square meters. And in Mumbai, it finally breaks the 100 mark at 103 square meters. The very definition of a millionaire literally changes its physical footprint depending on the continent you're on.
And check this out, this disparity exists even within the exact same country. Let's focus strictly on the US market data for a second. If you have $1 million to spend on prime property, you get 34 square meters in New York. But take that exact same pile of money down the coast to Miami, and you almost double your space to 60 square meters. People are constantly calculating where their money actually buys them a life, rather than just a zip code. And honestly, that's exactly why there is such a massive push right now to find those highly profitable side hustles for 2026. Earning more is basically the only way to bridge this geographic gap.
Let's hit section 4, the modern middle class and the big divide.
So, we've looked at the extremes today, right? From a cheap haircut in Zambia to a $1 million closet in Monaco. But what does this mean for the average person caught right in the middle of these economic forces? Well, if there's one thing you should take away from this explainer, it's that the widening gap between daily expenses and elite luxury assets is creating a fundamentally new economic reality. The journey we just took perfectly maps out a profound structural shift in our society. When the cost of daily grooming scales up rapidly in developed nations, but the barrier to entry for prime real estate skyrockets even faster, the middle basically just gets hollowed out.
The crucial point is summarized perfectly by this direct insight from the ALEX community discussions. The middle class is now split into renters and owners. And yeah, that is the modern reality of wealth building. It's no longer just upper, middle, and lower class based purely on your salary. The defining economic line of our era, the true wealth divide, is asset ownership. The folks who own the ground beneath their feet are experiencing a completely different economic reality than those who rent it, regardless of what they're pulling in daily. Escaping that renter trap is exactly why tracking the most profitable side hustles for 2026 is no longer just optional. For a lot of people, it's survival.
And that brings us to the end of our data journey today. We started out looking for future wealth trends, traveled from haircuts in Zambia all the way to multi-million-dollar micro-apartments in Monaco, and arrived at the stark new definition of the modern middle class. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. In a world of such extreme economic disparities, which side of the divide will you build your future on? The data's out there, and preparing for those 2026 side hustles, that starts right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity, and I'll catch you next time.